Hey everyone, Don here. So today I just want to talk about 10 things that you must know leveling in Diablo 4. So to start out, I think that everyone should start on World Tier 2 unless you're brand new to RPGs or games in general, or even brand new to the Diablo franchise. I think it's worth it to play on Tier 2 for that 20% experience benefit. You get an extra 20% experience playing on Tier 2 versus Tier 1. You're also going to get a 15% gold bonus if you go on Tier 2 right away. And even though it's called Veteran, honestly, it's not that hard to get used to. And I just think that the benefits of playing on Tier 2 from the start will benefit you later in the game much more than going from Tier 1 over to Tier 2 and then moving on to Tier 3. Honestly, I think that's where everybody should start, and it's just going to make your character more powerful in the end and have more gold to be able to spend later on upgrades and stuff as you get further into the game. If you're finding you can't manage in Tier 2, you can always change the World Tier difficulty at the World Tier statue in Kyovashad, or even go back to the character select screen and change it back there. Tip 2 is to test out different builds early on in the game, as it's not the cost of the refund, like to refund your skills and put the points back in. It's not the cost that's going to screw you over, but the commitment to gear and gear aspects that relate to the build later in the game. So if you don't know what aspects are, we're going to touch on them later in this list. Aspects are things that you'll collect from legendaries as you're playing through the game. Definitely you'll collect them and they'll go into your Codex of Power as you're doing dungeons. And aspects are really going to dictate your character build, so it's very important to pay attention to them and kind of find out what playstyle that you like to play so that you can start focusing on the specific aspects to benefit your character. Number 3 is to collect as much plant and ore material as possible. I mean it. You absolutely will run out if you don't prioritize this, and not being able to upgrade your gear or craft elixirs is not the most ideal situation to be in. Upgrading your gear and crafting elixirs are key to progression, and further down the road, incenses will be super valuable as well. So as you're running through the world, and anytime you see an ore node or a plant node, don't just pass it up as there will be another one. Trust me, you need to stop and collect them, because you'll get to end of World Tier 2, end of World Tier 3, and you'll find that the amount of materials that it takes to make elixirs or make incenses when you can actually make those, or even to upgrade your gear, gets quite expensive. And you'll find that you'll be upgrading not just one set of gear, but multiple pieces of gear as you level up, and you're trying to find that those pieces that are more ideal than the previous one. It does become a thing where you can run into trouble, and that you have to, put time aside to go back and farm if you don't just continually do it as you're leveling up. So I would take the couple of seconds and definitely collect those plants and ore materials as you pass by them. So number 4, and this one is super important. You want to make sure you maximize your renown to be able to get those rewards, the skill points, and especially the potion count. You get skill points as reward 1 and reward 3 for each different zone, and you also are going to get a potion increase for reward 2. And I think the potion increase is the second most valuable and important reward, other than the skill point rewards. And I'm only going to focus on those 3 because the 4th and 5th reward you actually need to be at World Tier 3 to earn. So we're just going to focus on those first 3. So the potion one is the most important upgrade to get, especially fighting bosses in Tier 3 and beyond. And don't forget to upgrade your potions at the Alchemist, and you can do that every 10 levels starting at level 10. I found that leveling up myself the first time, I blew past level 10, and then I went, oh crap, I forgot, even though I played early access beta. It's just something to easily forget. So definitely remember to visit the Alchemist every 10 levels to upgrade your potions to make sure you can maximize how much health you're getting back per potion. Another thing that you'll be able to craft that's a huge benefit is incenses, and you'll start to get those at level 45. So those are buffs that you're going to get in a little AoE area around your character, and they'll give you different benefits, such as the first one that you'll be able to craft is called Song of the Mountain, which is going to increase your armor by 200 for every nearby player within your AoE circle that it affects. That one's pretty awesome, especially for boss fights, single target fights, and especially if you have a lot of melee characters. It kind of depends on your group makeup, but if you have a lot of melee characters, you're all going to be benefiting each other with that armor, and it absolutely helps. Number 5 is to not pass up on events, as they give you Obols of Curiosity, and they're an awesome, fun little challenge to mix up the gameplay as you're traveling through the world. Obols can be spent at the Purveyor of Curiosity, and there's one in each main city, and you can get some pretty sick upgrades this way. So, for example, you can get some rares if you're just stuck on blues, or you have the chance to maybe have a legendary come from the Purveyor of Curiosity, which is always a nice upgrade as you're leveling up, and could potentially give you your first aspect before you even step into a side dungeon. So don't pass up on the Purveyor of Curiosity. And remember that you definitely want to spend your obols before you max out on them, because they don't disappear or anything. They just kind of stay on the ground, but there's no point to save them up forever. You definitely want to spend them. More are always dropping. So definitely spend your obols and get yourself some sick gear. Number 6 is gems. Make sure you are gemming your gear, but as you're leveling up, you want to put gems in gear that already has sockets in it. It's not worth the cost, and I don't think you'll even have the materials to be able to add sockets to gear at that level. I mean 1 through 40. You're not going to be getting many scattered prisms. Scattered prisms usually drop from world bosses. You can get them from goblins, and I believe they have a chance to drop out around the world as well, or probably from dungeon bosses. But regardless, you don't get many of them, so you definitely want to save them for gear that is the most ideal as you start to get legendaries more commonly, as maybe you're getting, I would say, level 35 and up, 40 and up. As you're getting towards the end of your current tier, which, as I recommend, is starting in World Tier 2, and you're moving on to, hopefully, World Tier 3, you're still saving those scattered prisms to be able to put sockets into your best gear that you find. Number 7 is to pay very close attention to the aspects that you're getting, whether you're going to get them in your Codex of Power from completing dungeons. Dungeons reward you with an aspect that can be added to your Codex of Power that you can apply to gear at any time. And you want to pay attention to the synergies between them, because aspects can definitely make or break your character later in the game. If you find your character is a little weak or not putting out as much damage as they could be, take a look at how your aspects are interacting with each other. And with a little bit of planning, you're definitely able to make your character 10 times stronger versus if you hadn't planned any of your aspects around each other. Number 8, and another thing on aspects, is to pay very close attention to the aspects that drop, but the descriptions of the aspects, because the aspects that drop versus the ones that come from the codex, the ones that drop actually roll with higher percentages than the ones in your codex. And that's because you can't reuse them all the time. Once you extract an aspect off a legendary that drops just out in the open world, you have that in your inventory and it's a one-time use. So if you have an aspect that rolls perfectly, I would recommend extracting that for use later on and not salvaging that item. And tip number 9 is to remember to maximize your XP by keeping your elixir on as much as possible. And when you're grouped, you're also going to gain a 10% XP for being around other players in your party. Or if you're just around other players in the open world, you're going to gain a 5% XP bonus. So it's absolutely important to have that, at least the elixir on all the time if you are able to party with someone. Or say later in the game, once you get access to Hell Tides and you see people running around killing mobs in the Hell Tide, definitely just run around with them. You'll get more XP that way, and you can maximize your grind and make it not as grueling for you. And number 10 is to salvage practically everything as you're leveling to hoard as many mats early on as possible, because if you don't, you'll definitely be hurting later on when you go to upgrade your gear, especially as a barb. I play a barb, so especially as a barb with the 4 weapons total that you get versus everybody else, that's a lot of extra upgrades to do. And as you're leveling, the reason I suggest to salvage things more than sell them for gold is because in World Tier 1 and 2, you'll gain more than enough gold to be sufficient for your repairs and to be sufficient for your upgrades that you're going to need to do. There is a quest early on to upgrade one of your weapons just one time, so it's very cheap to do, the gold cost and the material cost. But as you're leveling up and as you get World Tier 3 legendaries, you'll find the cost to upgrade them the 4 or 5 times that you get to is quite steep. So you definitely want to have those materials farmed early on and hoard as many as possible. So that was my quick list on 10 tips that you must know while leveling through Diablo 4. If you apply all these, I guarantee your journey through Sanctuary is going to be ultra smooth, whether you decide to play on World Tier 1 or 2. Paying attention to these 10 things will absolutely help you out. So I definitely recommend all of them. But if there's one thing, and one thing especially to pay attention to from this list as you're leveling, is to keep your elixirs on all the time. If there's one thing I could recommend to help you remember that, if you can't remember to go into your inventory, into the tab where your elixirs are, and to equip them all the time, what you can do is press E to go to your emote wheel and bind your elixir to one of these slots on the emote wheel. That way it can be easier and quicker access to just hit E, scroll over to the correct part of the wheel that it's on, and just tap your elixir from there. It's helped me, and I think it's much easier to keep your elixir on that way. If you have the ability to, always run with a party as often as you can to maximize that XP. And if you're running solo, I'm really going to push that you start on World Tier 2, because then you can maximize your XP that way. And furthermore, if you're down for a challenge, you can always fight mobs higher level than you, because there will be an added experience benefits. And you can check what that percentage is or the multiplier of experience on websites like Maxroll, etc. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully that helped you out. If it did help you out, let me know in the comments down below. And as always, you can check me out on my live streams down in the comments down below. I do stream on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube. And that'll be it for this one. So if this video helped you out, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.